The sun is barely a thought on the edge of the horizon, and already the streets of Rome murmur with life. Cobblestones sweat with dew. Somewhere far off, a donkey sneezes theatrically. The smell of damp stone, last night's fish, and distant ash drift together in that oddly nostalgic perfume known only to people who live too close to public fountains and other people's business. You blink awake inside. A modest domus, nothing lavish, but solid. You're a Roman citizen. A Panis a Circenses kind of person, though today you'll be more Panis than Circenses. You're a bread inspector, Inspector Panis, a role as glorious as it sounds. Rome doesn't just feed the world. Rome watches how the bread is baked. And you, lucky sleeper, are the watcher of loaves. Your tunic is wrinkled. Your sandals still have sand in them from yesterday's market brawl over. Something you've already decided to forget. The linen curtain stirs. Rome breathes, and you're about to inspect it, one loaf at a time. Outside, the clatter begins early. A child yells something unintelligible about a missing goat. A merchant shouts, "Fresh garum," which is, in fairness, a contradiction. You shuffle down the narrow lane, eyes adjusting to the gold syrup light pouring over roof tiles and hanging laundry. Every window holds a life. Most are still asleep, and they'd like to keep it that way. Don't worry. You'll handle the chindi, loud part of the day for them. Before you get to the first bakery, let's make one thing clear. You probably won't make it through this day. Not fully conscious, anyway. The bread fumes will lull you. The repetition will hypnotize you. Somewhere between the third oven and the 10th lie you'll hear from a baker. Your mind will wander, but before that, take a breath. A slow one. Let the warmth of the early Roman morning press softly around your shoulders. And hey, if your eyelids feel heavy, that's fine. No judgment here. Just don't forget to like and subscribe gently, like you're tucking in a sleepy amphora. Comment your local time and where in the empire or beyond you're listening from. It's oddly comforting to know where the dreamers gather. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey quietly, calmly. With a little historical crust. You pass a graffiti-scribbled wall. Lucia loves Gaius, even if he smells like goats. Some things never change. The bakery district begins where the ground tilts slightly downward, toward the Tiber. The smell thickens here, yeast, smoke, hints of burnt flour and ambition. The first shop's door is already open. Old Horatius is sweeping ash out of his stone oven. He greets you with the enthusiasm of a man who knows the grain ration is late and the scales might be rigged, but also knows how to smile through it. Here's your job. Roughly, check the weight of loaves, ensure nobody's skimping on grain, sniff out bribes, taste the occasional crust, and most importantly, be visibly present. Rome thrives not just on order, but on the idea of order. You are that idea, wrapped in sandals and crust flakes. Horatius offers a sample, coarse barley bread, cracked at the top like a desert floor. It's warm, dense, vaguely sour. He calls it rustic. You call it honest. Somewhere someone would call it a doorstop. You mark a wooden tablet with a symbol meaning acceptable. No one's entirely sure what these symbols mean anymore. Historians still debate whether the early inspection marks had legal weight or were just a clever way to skip paperwork. As you thank Horatius and step back onto the street. A cat darts between your feet. You nearly trip. She looks smug. She probably Lives better than you, fewer responsibilities, more sardines. You move on, deeper into the waking city. Behind you, ovens glow. One interesting tidbit before we go farther. Some Roman bakers swore by using seawater instead of salt, claiming it made the crust speak. Of course, modern bakers aren't sure what that meant. Probably a poetic way. To justify bad plumbing, down the next alley you spot your second stop. The sign above the door, a painted loaf with wings, tries too hard, and so does the baker inside. His name is Labio. He's wearing a tunic that's clearly been bleached for the occasion. He's also wearing too much perfume. Suspicious. Labio greets you with what might be a smile or a grimace rehearsed in the reflection of a polished amphora. He's holding a basket of still steaming bread and gesturing like a man who wants you to notice how very golden his crusts are. You nod, slowly, because you know, and he knows you know, that gold crusts don't mean full weight. In Rome, color is not the law. Grams are. You take a loaf from the top and another from the bottom of the stack. The top one is suspiciously heavier. You balance it in your palm like you're judging a peach at the market. Then, without saying a word, you pull out your travel scale. Labio tenses. Somewhere in the back room, flour stops moving. Probably an apprentice holding his breath. The top loaf is perfect. The bottom, not so much. Lighter by just enough to matter. Labio coughs and mentions that humidity does strange things. You raise an eyebrow. Rome's been dry for days. He adds, also, the flour came from Hispania this week. You nod, because that's his excuse. Every week, it's some foreign flour. Last time, he blamed Egypt. The bread's always the victim. Mark his shop with a tiny chalk symbol just above the arch. Not a fine yet. Just a warning. Enough to remind him the crust isn't fooling anyone. As you step outside, a boy races past chasing a runaway chicken. You sidestep, narrowly avoiding disaster. Somewhere nearby, a rooster laughs. Probably related. To your left, a small statue of Mercury has been smeared with fresh butter, an offering from some desperate courier perhaps. Or maybe a prank. Rome can never quite decide when it's being sincere. Back to the street. The light is climbing now, bouncing off bronze doors and mosaic tiles. You pass a woman hauling water. She's humming a tune you've heard before, something old and oddly catchy. A marketplace melody, half lullaby, half warning. It sticks in your ears like olive oil in your beard. Your next stop is a communal bakery. These are the backbone of the poor district's. Families bring their dough, shaped at home, and pay a small fee to have it baked. You like these visits. They're loud, crowded, and far more honest than the polished shops. Inside, the ovens roar. You feel the wave of heat like a wall. Sweat beads on your neck. A man with soot-blackened arms shouts your name and waves you over. He's proud of his work. And it shows. The loaves here are marked with initials pressed into the dough before baking. That's how families find their own. There's something lovely about that bread as both necessity and signature. You pick up a loaf with a child's initials. It's awkwardly shaped. One side is thicker than the other. You press the crust. It sings back with a crackle. Honest. You smile. One of the workers tells you that last week, someone tried to smuggle a message inside a loaf. A love letter. It burned, of course. The ashes smelled faintly of regret and time. You nod solemnly. By the way, it's still unclear to historians whether Roman ovens reached consistent enough temperatures to bake evenly. The records are vague, and the ovens were moody. Like a senator with gout. You help yourself to a small heel of fresh bread. It's chewy, rich with barley and hints of fennel. You chew slowly. No one rushes a bread inspector who's chewing. Before you leave, a girl offers you a tiny loaf shaped like a fish. She made it herself. You thank her with theatrical reverence, promise to eat it later, and tuck it carefully into your satchel. You won't, it's rock hard. But the gesture warms something in you. Back on the street, the sun is now high enough to dazzle your eyes as you glance toward the Capitol. A distant procession of priests march in silence, probably blessing something urgent like a new latrine. You wipe your brow. You've inspected 3 bakeries and stepped around 5 suspicious puddles. A record, perhaps. You still have a long way to go, and someone's about to offer you wine at 10 a.m. You walk along the Via Panis, a name you made up just now because it sounds official and poetic. In reality, it's just a busy Roman street that smells increasingly like warm onions and civic responsibility. The sun is now performing at full power, bouncing off the lime-washed walls, igniting tunics into blinding flags of cotton. You squint. Across the square, an old friend waves you down. It's Flaccus, former baker turned enthusiastic wine enthusiast, now unofficially retired at 42. He greets you like a man who's had wine for breakfast and possibly as mouthwash. His robe is askew. His sandals are arguing with gravity. You need hydration, he declares, pressing a clay cup into your hand. It's medicinal. The wine is tart, spiced, and entirely unapproved for a government official on duty. You sip politely. You regret it instantly. Flaccus tells you he's planning to open a school for the art of silent fermentation. You nod like that makes sense. He also mentions that he once saw a man bake bread using only sunlight and a magnifying glass. He swears it worked. Historians, for the record, remain skeptical. You part ways with Flaccus and continue down the road. A donkey passes, dragging a cart full of amphorae. You briefly wonder if it's possible to inspect bread professionally and still avoid becoming part of some ancient mural about civic decay. Your next destination looms ahead, a bakery known simply as Domus Crustus. The name alone earns your suspicion. Inside, it's all smooth counters and 2 clean shelves. The baker, Aaliyah, greets you with teeth so white they seem suspiciously modern. She offers you a sampler platter. Yes, a platter. Someone is trying too hard. You inspect the loaves. Perfectly symmetrical, faintly perfumed, crusts dusted with something sparkly. You raise an eyebrow. Edible mica, Aaliyah whispers conspiratorially. Imported from Britannia, all the noble households are doing it. You wonder briefly if Caesar knows the patricians are crunching rocks for fashion. Aaliyah insists you taste one of the loaves. You do. It's soft, too soft, almost cake. You can feel the sugar sliding past Roman regulations. You make a quiet note. On your wax tablet, dessert, not bread. She sees your face and immediately pivots. Of course, I have a second oven, she says with a grin, for the rustic loaves. She produces one, coarse, burnt on one side, and utterly honest. You nod. She nods. The game is played. You mark her shop with the symbol for monitor. Closely but probably harmless. On your way out, a beggar asks if you're the man who gets to eat free bread all day. You say yes. He says you're living the dream. You don't correct him. A brief fun fact. Some Roman ovens were communal, but others were rented by the hour. Time, literally, was baked into the bread. If you didn't retrieve your loaf on time, it became someone else's breakfast. You head toward the river. Your path takes you through the fish market. The scent is assertive. You breathe through your mouth. Along the way, a poet is reciting verses about bread, loudly, dramatically. No one asked him to. You pause, listen to a line about crusts forged in Jupiter's kill, and decide that art is alive and well, even if no one wants to pay for it. In the shadow of a fig tree, you take a moment to sit. Your feet ache. Your satchel is now a patchwork of crumbs, soot, and dignity. Somewhere nearby, a mother scolds her son in Latin so ancient it sounds like a curse. You close your eyes for just a second. A breeze passes. It smells faintly of rosemary. And old coins. And then, because fate enjoys a well-timed joke, a voice calls your name. You open your eyes. It's a senator's assistant. The assistant is tall, sharp-eyed, and wearing a toga that's been pressed within an inch of its fabric. Life. He tells you the senator one, Marcus Sergius Lentulus, requires your presence at his private villa. To inspect bread, you stare at him. He stares back. Neither of you blinks. He adds immediately. You sigh deeply, as one does when bureaucracy decides to take itself seriously. Again, the walk to the villa takes you uphill, past bronze-doored temples and sleepy wine shops. The city opens up a little. Here more terraces, less shouting. The kind of neighborhood where fountains flow unnecessarily and dogs are small on purpose, not at the gate. A slave opens the door with theatrical boredom. Inside, the villa gleams with imported marble and second-hand Greek sculptures. A bird chirps in a gold cage. Probably a metaphor. You're led to the garden atrium. Senator Lentulus is reclining, wearing a robe the color of crushed olives and sandals more polished than your best thoughts. He gestures lazily to a platter of bread. Tell me, he says, is this still fit for a roman? You approach the platter like it might insult you. The loaves are absurdly styled, braided, stuffed, and one appears to be shaped like a dolphin. You pick it up. It's filled with pine nuts and honey. You chew. Slowly, the senator watches like this is a performance. It's unconventional, you say. Unconventional, he repeats, pleased. That's what I told the kitchen. Bread must evolve. You nod solemnly. Though the law requires consistency, you add. The senator shrugs. Laws evolve too. Historians still argue whether senators were required to follow baking regulations or merely encouraged to pretend. One scroll suggests a noble exemption, though most scholars agree it was probably satire or bribery. Or both. You ask to see the household's baking facilities. A kitchen slave leads you down a side corridor into a cavernous room filled with heat, flour, and barely concealed panic. Clearly, they didn't expect an actual inspection. You poke a few loaves. One is raw in the middle. Another has been cleverly painted brown with fig juice. You raise an eyebrow. The baker turns visibly pale. Back in the garden, you deliver your Verdict in the diplomatic tone of a man who enjoys breathing. Your loaves are innovative, but perhaps too bold for the current code. Lentulus nods, then waves you away. Your usefulness is spent. As you leave, you pass a courtyard statue of Ceres, the grain goddess. Her marble eyes seem to follow you. You mutter a brief apology for the fig-painted loaf. Outside, the sun has dipped slightly westward. You feel it in your knees, and possibly your soul. A short walk later, you pause at a small shrine to Pharnax, the ancient Roman goddess of ovens. Someone has left an offering, a burnt crust, sincere, humble, slightly over-baked. You smile. Only 6 more bakeries to go today, unless someone throws a festival in your honor. Unlikely. Let's hope for something quiet next. You turn left at a corner, where the wall is sun-warmed and covered in faint chalk drawings, lopsided donkeys, a suspiciously muscular Mercury, and, charmingly, a loaf of bread with wings again. Elia's influence, no doubt. Rome is nothing if not recursive. The next bakery on your route is one you almost enjoy. Almost. It's small, tucked behind a bathhouse that smells of damp marble and old gossip. You remember this place. The baker, Terentius, is quiet. Doesn't bribe, doesn't charm, doesn't even speak much unless spoken to. You like that in a man responsible for the daily crust. As you approach, the familiar clatter of trays meets your ears. Terentius stands over his oven, sleeves rolled, hair covered in a tightly bound cloth. He looks up, nods once, and points silently to a row of loaves cooling by the window. You select one at random. It's warm, heavy, and smells like roasted grain and faintly, very faintly of dill. You glance at him. Dill. He shrugs. Accident. You sniff again. Accident or not, it works. You break the loaf. Steam escapes. The crust is thick, but yielding, the interior just firm enough. You taste. It's honest bread. Earthy. Quiet. Like its maker. You mark the inspection. Sign in charcoal above the door. A small symbol that basically means don't change a thing. Terentius nods again and turns back to his oven, content in the silent rhythm of his trade. As you step out, a warm breeze catches the hem of your tunic. It smells of wood smoke and olives today. You linger a moment beneath a grapevine spilling over a crumbling archway. The shade is soft. The moment is slow. If the empire collapsed right now, you'd go out in relative peace. Before you go, here's a curious tidbit. Some Roman bakers secretly added powdered marble to stretch their flour. It made the bread wider, more appealing to the upper classes. It also, incidentally, made it harder to digest. As if Rome needed another reason for indigestion. Further up the hill, your next stop is a bakery you dread. Not because the bread is bad, but because its owner, Brucia, insists on philosophical discussion with every inspection. She greets you with the opening line, "What is a loaf, if not a vessel for the soul?" You blink. "Also, I've got honeycomb and rolls," she adds, as if that explains everything. The rolls are excellent, by the way. Spiced, rich, a little absurd. But you nod and sample one while Brucia lectures you on Plato and the ideal form of bread. You wonder, briefly, what Plato would have made of Rome's civic crusts. Probably a symposium about it. You ask gently if she's following the state-mandated weight requirements. The weight of the soul or the weight of wheat? She asks. You respond, dryly, the one that gets me fired." She laughs and gestures toward the official scale. Her loaves pass, just barely. You suspect she adds chickpea flour when grain is tight, which is technically allowed. Rome is flexible like that. As long as the people are fed, the Senate doesn't ask too many questions. Still, historians can't agree on the precise recipe of standard Roman bread. Some say it was mostly spelt, others argue for barley and emmer blends. The truth likely varied by district, class, and how annoyed the miller was that day. You exit Brucia's bakery as she begins quoting Horace to a passing cat. The street beyond is quiet for a change. The din of Rome has taken a brief breath. You use the silence to eat the rest of that honeycomb and roll. You will not regret this, despite your stomach's concerns. Half a block later, you hear singing soft, rhythmic, and oddly sweet. A children's choir is practicing in the courtyard of a nearby temple. You pause, leaning against a shaded wall. Their voices float upward like flower dust in sunbeams. You don't often get these moments. When you do, you let them sit in your ribs for a while. Then, a cart crashes. Wood splinters. A barrel of fish. Sauce bursts open. Someone screams in Latin so filthy it burns the air. A bystander claps. Rome is back. You move on. Still 3 bakeries to go. And one has a history of unfortunate rat incidents. There's no polite way to say it. The next bakery on your list is a disaster wrapped in wheat. Its name is Domus Panem Novum, house of new bread, which sounds modern, exciting, and misleading. It's run by a pair of brothers, Gaius and Gaius. Yes, really. Twins. Identical. Infamous. Confusing. One of them bakes. The other negotiates. You're never entirely sure which is which, and honestly, you've stopped asking. You arrive just as one Gaius is yelling at a delivery boy, while the other Gaius is trying to hide a broken amphora with a decorative fig. They see you and freeze. One recovers fast. Ah, the emperor of bread. You raise a brow. Inspector will do. They usher you in with suspicious cheer. Inside, the oven is roaring, but the floor is slick, the counters uneven, and there's an odor not entirely explainable by dough or wood smoke. Thing sourer. The loaves look fine at first glance, a bit pale maybe. One is oddly egg-shaped. Another has clearly collapsed mid-bake and been stuffed with raisins to hide it. You poke. It deflates with a sigh. You ask about the weight. They eagerly produce a scale. You recognize it instantly. It's the lucky scale. Lucky because it mysteriously subtracts 50 grams when anyone official is watching. You smile and pull out your own pocket scale. The mood shifts. The loaves are light. Consistently so. Too consistently. You scribble a mark on your tablet. Perhaps the flour is one Gaius starts. You cut him off. Unless your wheat's been on a diet, this bread's a lie. They don't argue, just nod. You leave a symbol that means politely, fix this or we'll fix it for you. As you exit, a small girl on the stoop points at your tablet and says, "My papa says that sign means you're the bread police." You smile. He's not wrong. Before you continue, a strange fact. During a brief, strange period in late Republic, Rome, bakers were legally forbidden from raising prices, but not from shrinking loaves. So some loaves got unusually decorative, tall, Twisted. Technically legal. Deeply disappointing. Your next stop is a military supply bakery. These are the workhorses of the empire: huge ovens, massive mixing pits, and no time for flair. The bread here feeds legions. Literally. You arrive to the sound of shouting, rhythmic, coordinated. A team of apprentices is kneading in unison. Their arms rise and fall like soldiers marching dough. The head baker, a former centurion named Numerius, greets you with a nod so sharp it might leave a dent. "No frills here," he says, handing you a round, heavy loaf. Just what the lads eat before stabbing goals. The bread is dry, dense, almost aggressively plain. But it weighs what it should. It's uniform, dependable. You take a bite and feel your molars protest. You nod. Perfect. Numerius looks pleased. "No one dies hungry on my watch." You believe him. You also believe he could make you do push-ups for crumbs. Interestingly, Roman military bread often included vinegar in the dough. It added shelf life and deterred mold, or appetites. The jury's still out. You finish your inspection, offer your compliments, and walk back into the fading afternoon sun. One more bakery. The last one, and it's the strangest of them all. You're tired now. Not just in your feet, which feel like they've walked to Gaul and back, but somewhere deeper. Somewhere between your spine and the part of your brain responsible for pretending to care about crumb structure. You pause beside a cracked fountain, watching a pigeon aggressively court a loaf of discarded bread. You consider doing the same, sitting, resting, maybe whispering something romantic to a crust. But no. One more dot. This final bakery isn't listed on your official route. It's whispered about. A fringe operation. Operates at odd hours. Some say it's a cult. Others call it an experiment in edible spirituality. Most, though, just call it the weird one. You find it nestled between two shrines, one to Diana, the huntress, and one to a dog that may or may not have been deified after chasing off a tax collector. The doorway is draped in woven reeds. There's no sign, just the smell, warm, spiced, not entirely terrestrial. You push the curtain aside. Inside, it's dim. Candles flicker. Incense curls in lazy spirals. A man in a robe greets you. His eyes are glassy. His hair is bread-colored. "Welcome," he whispers, "to the Temple of Leaven." You don't laugh. Mostly because you're not sure if that would provoke a ritual. Around you, loaves are arranged on pedestals like relics. Some are round, others long and braided. One is shaped like what you assume is a phoenix. There's a shallow bowl of flour on an altar. People are chanting gently. In the back, you hear the words "rising" and "sacred yeast" more than once. You clear your throat. "I'm here to inspect." The man nods solemnly. "We've been expecting you." That's never a comforting phrase. He leads you to the communal loaf, which he insists is infused with the dreams of 3 nights' sleep. You assume he means it's fermented slowly, though you wouldn't rule out pillow involvement. You weigh it. It's perfect. You cut it. It's airy, soft, with a crust that crackles like a tiny thunderclap. You take a bite. It is astonishing. Faintly sweet, with herbs you don't recognize. Maybe rosemary. Maybe divination. The man whispers. "We use spring water filtered through temple stone and only stir clockwise." You nod. Naturally. Historians are still unsure whether bread cults existed in Rome or whether modern archaeologists are simply overinterpreting extremely dedicated bakers. Either way, something happened here. You leave a special mark on their wall, a rare one. It means approved. Also ... what? As you step outside, the sun has begun its descent. The shadows stretch long and yawning. Rome is quieter now. You feel it, the exhale of the city. People are inside, eating, laughing, complaining about grain prices. You've inspected 9 bakeries, been offered 3 kinds of bribes, stepped in something regrettable, and learned that at least one senator considers dolphins a valid bread. Shape, you deserve a nap, or at least some wine. Instead, you sit on a low wall and watch the pigeons settle into statues for the night. Then someone taps your shoulder. You turn . It's the governor's steward. He says, "There's a situation at the grain warehouse." Of course there is. The grain warehouse is on the edge of the city, where the buildings are lower, the streets quieter, and the smell of the Tiber gets a little pushier. You walk quickly, the steward beside you narrating between breaths. There was a shipment from Alexandria, he explains, docked at noon. By sundown, someone noticed ... discrepancies. You sigh. Because of course, you knew this morning had been too peaceful. Bread may feed Rome, but grain fuels the empire. If something goes wrong at the source, the whole crust collapses. The warehouse looms in the half-light, tall, angular, and surprisingly silent. 2 guards flank the door, bored and overarmed. They nod you in. Inside, it's cooler, dusty, smells of burlap and bureaucracy. A scribe with ink-stained fingers waves a scroll at you. "Numbers don't match," he says. "Manifest says 500 sacks. We counted 478. You do some math in your head. You wish you hadn't. That's enough missing grain to short half the city's poor district. You ask to see the sacks. They take you to the stacks, tall piles of grain wrapped in rough linen. You walk among them, touching, pressing, listening. One of them feels wrong. Too soft, too ... hollow ... You tear it open ... not grain, rocks, sand, weighed and packed with the precision of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. You look at the steward. He looks at the scribe. The scribe looks at his sandals. Someone is stealing grain and trying to pass it off with filler. Bricks, too, you murmur, poking another suspicious sack. Whoever did this had access, time, and no fear of consequences. The steward mutters something unrepeatable about the governor's probable reaction. You tell him, "Start an inventory, quietly. I'll come back tomorrow." He nods. Before you leave, you scratch a note into your wax tablet. Investigate, missing grain, sand substitution, Alexandria route. You exit the warehouse. The stars are just beginning to appear, soft and scattered. The kind of stars that listen, not judge. On your way home, you pass a group of bakers gathered at a tavern. They raise cups in your direction. You raise a hand in return. Though your mind is elsewhere, you wonder, how many loaves did you weigh today that were short because the grain never arrived? You tuck that thought away. And let the night begin. Morning returns without asking your permission. It rolls in slowly at first, like someone nudging you awake with a stale crust, and then with certainty, like a rooster that's been promoted to town crier. You rise from your bedroll, feeling as though you've been gently rolled over by a chariot. Your satchel is still half full of crumbs and notes. Your sandals are still slightly damp from the fountain you sat on last night. And your mind is still stuck in the warehouse among the sacks of fake grain and the echo of a lie baked into silence. You chew a cold barley roll left from yesterday. It's dense, dry, and slightly accusatory. You chew anyway. You're not a senator. You can't afford warm regrets. You head toward the forum, not to make a scene, but to make a presence. That's how things move in Rome. Loudness is for poets and politicians. The real stuff happens in murmurs, between pillars, in the shade of legal ambiguity. You stop by a public message board first. Fresh wax notices. Someone's lost a sandal. Someone else found a sandal and would like to trade it for wine. Classic Rome. Then, there it is, a small parchment tacked to the board. Reduced grain rations in Subura district beginning tomorrow. Drought in Alexandria. You stare. No mention of the theft. No mention of bricks and sacks. Just a tidy little lie. Trimmed and pressed for public digestion. You tear it down and fold it into your satchel. Your first stop today isn't a bakery. It's the governor's residence. Again, you pass the same vendors, the same graffiti, the same chicken who clearly has business with you. Rome doesn't change daily, it loops in variations, like a song you can't quite hum but recognize all the same. The steward meets you at the gate. This time his face is grim. He leads you to a side chamber. The governor, he says, is indisposed, which in Rome means either drunk or dead, or possibly in a bath so long he's evolved gills. The steward hands you a scroll. It's stamped with the official seal. It grants you provisional authority to inspect any warehouse tied to the grain route until further notice. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. You asked for teeth. You didn't ask exactly. But you're not arguing. On your way out, he mutters, "There's talk of a named Lucilius, a merchant, a fixer, a man known for moving grain and not asking questions." You nod, store that name behind your eyes. You now have three things: authority, suspicion, and a mild headache. Two of those are useful. You head back to the warehouse. This time, the guards stand up a little straighter. Inside, the same stacks. But now you're not just looking. You're tearing open sacks like they insulted your ancestry. 5 more prove fake. One has pebbles. Another has straw. One, inexplicably, contains crushed seashells. Creative. In the office, the scribe fidgets. You show him the parchment from the forum. "Did you know about this?" He shakes his head. "Too quickly. You." Lean in. "I'm going to find Lucilius. If I find out you helped him, I'll make sure your next post is guarding a latrine in Numidia." His face blanches. He nods. Fun cultural tidbit. It was considered a minor civic humiliation in Rome to be assigned to public lavatory duty. Not quite exile, just exfoliating. You leave the warehouse with dust in your lungs and determination in your feet. There's a small cafe near. The Baths of Agrippa, where couriers and grain clerks gather before noon. If Lucilius is a name whispered in the trade, it'll echo here. You order a cup of warm honeyed wine and sit with your back to the wall. The talk flows Like it always does when bread is light and secrets are heavy. Then you hear it. Lucilius. Paid extra to store grain by the docks last week. Why not just use the main silos? Another voice. He said he didn't trust the city's math. You smile. People who don't trust the city's math often end up subtracting things themselves. Lucilius has a warehouse near the river. You've walked past it a dozen times. Always assumed it held olives or furniture or smug poetry. You finish your wine, stand, and head back into the labyrinth. The riverfront warehouse district is noisier than you remember. Crates being loaded, shouts from boatmen, the occasional sharp cry of an overloaded mule giving its opinion. The Tiber flows steadily, smelling of silt, fish, and 1,000 small crimes. You find Lucilius's warehouse. It looks like every other. Building here gray, boxy, unassuming. That's the point. When you want to hide something in Rome, you hide it in plain sight. Or behind taxes. The door is unguarded, which already tells you too much. Real warehouses have bored guards and old dogs. This one just has a small chalk mark near the base of sign for safe entry, used by smugglers and very lost actors. You step inside. It's dark, but not empty. Sacks everywhere, stacked high. No markings, no scrolls, no scribes. You pick one. Tear it open. Grain. Pick another. Also grain. Then another dash bricks. Another dash gravel. The pattern is clear. Real grain layered on top. Filler beneath. Like a polite lie told over breakfast. You hear footsteps. 2 men enter from a side door. They stop when they see you. One wears a tunic too clean for this district. The other carries a dagger in a way that says, I don't use this often, but I enjoy it when I do. You hold up your official scroll. Inspection. They laugh. You don't. I'm going to take one of these sacks to the governor's clerk, you say. And I'm going to tell him about Lucilius. The clean tunic shrugs. Lucilius isn't here. You smile. Good. I'll find him while you're answering questions under civic lighting. A moment of stillness. Then the daggerman steps forward. You reach into your satchel and casually pull out a half loaf of Brucia's bread, the honeycomb one. You toss it to him. He catches it. Sniffs. Takes a bite. His shoulders loosen. The clean tunic man sighs. We're not paid enough for this, he mutters. You back out slowly. No one follows. Back on the street. You walk quickly. You know now that Lucilius is running a full fraud, layering false sacks, blaming foreign droughts, shorting the people's grain. And worse, some of those bricks passed inspection. You wonder how many loaves you tasted this week that were born of lies. You walk until your legs ache again, until the stars peek through the haze, until Rome softens back into its candlelit. Hush. You write a report that night by lamplight. You leave out nothing, not even the part about the honeycomb and loaf diplomacy. You're honest like that, and you go to sleep thinking, tomorrow there will be bread, whether it's real or not. That's your job. But for now, let's rest. Dawn returns, soft-footed and gold-laced. Rome stirs again, not like it's waking up for the first time, but like someone who merely nodded off mid-sentence and now resumes the conversation with the sun. You do the same. Your limbs ache in that quiet, competent way that says you did something yesterday, something real, something bureaucratically dangerous. It doesn't feel like victory. Rome rarely gives those away. But it feels like movement. You step into the street just as a boy on a donkey hurls a crust of bread at a pigeon. The pigeon wins. You take that as a sign of continuity. Your task today isn't in the bakeries, not directly. It's in the halls where decisions are dressed up like wisdom and paraded through marbled corridors. You're headed to the office of one Decimus Annus Florus, a grain overseer, mid-tier noble, and occasional poet. He's rumored to write elegies to sacks of barley. You suspect this is exaggerated. You also suspect it isn't. His office is above the grain scales near the Temple of Saturn, where weights are measured, records are falsified with flair, and scrolls are stored in quantities designed to confuse. You climb the stairs slowly, partly from fatigue, partly from dread. Decimus greets you with the distracted warmth of someone who has never touched a scale but considers himself an authority en masse. He gestures to a couch. You decline and stay standing. It's the kind of power move that only works if you have sore feet and a scroll full of fraud. You place your report on his desk. He reads the first few lines, then looks up. Rocks? You nod. Sand? You nod again. He leans back. Lucilius? You say nothing. He sighs like a man who has just learned his favorite wine is mostly vinegar. To his credit, he doesn't dismiss you. He sends for a clerk, mutters instructions about verifying your claims, and even thanks you formally, like he's congratulating a table for remaining upright. Quietly, he says. We'll handle this quietly. You nod, even though you know Rome never handles anything quietly. News spreads like fire in a straw roof. By sundown, even the bakers in Subura will know someone's been seasoning their loaves with deception. Still, you take the win. Small, dusty, bureaucratic, but real. You exit into the sunlight and wander. No inspections today. Not officially. But your feet pull you toward the streets you know, the ovens you trust. Not to work, but to see first, Terentius's shop. He sees you and simply hands you a small round loaf, warm from the oven. No words, just the smell of clean effort. Then to Brucia's. She's quoting Epicurus to a goat. She nods at you with approval. I heard you shamed a senator. You smile. No, just a merchant. Pity, she says. They're easier to replace. You take a slice of her olive rosemary bread and carry it with you as you walk to the communal bakery. Children are laughing. They're trading initials stamped into half loaves. A boy shows off one shaped like a turtle. You suspect it was accidental. You breathe in the scent of dough and fire, of work done in public and shared in crumbs. Here's a curious detail. In poorer districts, families sometimes painted a little Marcan oil on top of their dough before taking it to the bakery shapes. Letters, sometimes even crude portraits. A kind of edible graffiti, long before branding was invented. As you walk past the Temple of Ceres, you leave a piece of Brucia's bread on the altar. Just a crust. Just in case, because you're not superstitious, but Rome is. And sometimes, that's enough. A few steps later, a baker from one of the earlier shops stops you. Did you hear? He says. There's going to be an audit. You blink. That was fast. You nod, vaguely. He grins. About time. That afternoon, you sit beneath an olive tree. You're not working. just thinking, which is a luxury for someone who usually thinks while chewing. You realize something as you watch a child chase a chicken through a courtyard. You may not save the empire. You may not even save the loaves, but you've made it a little harder to sell a bag of bricks as a bushel of bread. And for Rome, that's something. The evening light settles on the rooftops, soft, slow, glowing like old bronze. There's still bread to inspect. There's always more, but not tonight. You drift. The next morning arrives disguised as a breeze. You wake slowly, dream fragments clinging to your thoughts like flour on damp hands. You dreamed of bread again. Not unusual. This one had wings. It flew straight into a senator's toga and vanished. You decide not to unpack that metaphor. You stretch. You creak. You rise. Today's work is supposed to be light whenever. That means in Rome, you're to revisit a few bakeries with pending warnings. Make sure the scales are behaving. Make sure the flour isn't moonlighting as gravel. Make sure the bricks have found other careers. Your first stop is Domus Crustus. Yes, Aaliyah's shop again. You prepare yourself for Sparkle. She greets you with exaggerated innocence. "I've gone rustic," she declares, "per your critique." You raise an eyebrow. She gestures to the counter. The loaves are browner, less symmetrical. One even has a crack in it. You pick it up and inspect it. Smells fine. Feels right. Tastes suspiciously wholesome. "Did you make these?" She looks offended. "Of course. With help." You glance at the back room. You hear the unmistakable thump of a real baker kneading dough with the seriousness of a temple priest. You nod. Approved. She bows. Progress is a journey. You don't say anything, but you make a note. Delegation. Working. Next is the bakery run by the twins, Gaius and Gaius. You expect chaos. You get symmetry. The loaves are measured, stacked, properly labeled. One Gaius greets you. "We've rebalanced our weights." Other Gaius adds, "Also, no more foreign flour until we can prove it exists." You test a few loaves. They're fine, not inspired, but fine. You mark them, compliant, miraculously. They beam like you've knighted them. Quick aside. There are accounts of imperial bakers receiving medals during festivals for service to the grain. No one is sure what these medals looked like. Some believe they were bread-shaped. Others suspect they were edible. Either way, no one kept them. Later, at the military bakery, Numerius greets you like you're a returning general. New rations came in. Alexandria, but real this time. He hands you a loaf. It's improved. Less dense. Slightly less damaging to molars. "Good batch," he says. You nod. "No vinegar?" He winks. "Experimental recipe." You suspect he's lying, but in a good way. As the sun climbs, you find yourself near the bakery shrine to Fernax again. This time, someone has left not just crust, but a full loaf. Still warm, still soft. A sign of hope. A cat is sleeping next to it. The pigeons wait nearby in furious silence. You sit beside the statue and break off a piece. It's sweeter than expected, spiced with cinnamon and something else orange rind. You eat slowly. A few children pass by and wave. A merchant nods to you in passing. No one throws bricks today. And for a while, you let Rome hum around you. You've earned that much. You wake to laughter in the distance, a ripple of voices carried on morning air, woven with clinks of amphora lids, mule bells, and the rhythmic sweep of a broom on stone. Rome again, persistent as ever. You sit up, stretch your neck, and realize gently and without any real emotion that your back has betrayed you. Too many staircases, too many cobbled streets, too many philosophical debates about crust density. But today, something's different. Today, you're not inspecting bakeries. Today, you've been summoned to the Curia Julia. Yes, the Senate House. Not for trial. Not yet. One never really knows in Rome. You're to present your findings on the grain fraud to a group of senators who, on the average day, consider a loaf of bread either a campaign symbol or a chewable tax. You wash your face in a courtyard fountain. A passing woman scolds her child in 3 different dialects. A cat hops onto a statue and begins licking the ears of Venus. You take these as omens. You also grab a crust from your satchel. You never attend a political meeting hungry. The Curia rises before you like an old man's opinion, angular, stone-carved, and absolutely certain of its importance. Inside, it's cooler, quieter, and immediately tense. The air smells of parchment and ambition. You're led to the central floor, where a semicircle of robed senators look down like sleepy vultures. Some are listening. Some are counting sandals. One is absolutely asleep. You begin, not with drama, not with fury, but with numbers, with sacks, with weights, with one small sentence that lands like a dropped amphora. Someone sold Rome rocks instead of grain. There's a shuffle, a pause, a throat clears. You continue. You tell them about Lucilius, the warehouse, the substitution, the fake shortage. You hand over your scrolls. You don't embellish. You don't speculate. And still, one senator interrupts. Is this truly a crisis or merely inconvenience? You stare at him, wondering what his dinner table looks like. Probably garnished with denial. Then an older senator speaks up. Her name is Valeria. You've seen her before, quiet, severe, and always smelling faintly of figs. She asks a question that cuts through the chamber like an olive pit. How many loaves were short this week? You reply, tens of thousands. She nods once. This is theft, then. And suddenly the mood shifts. Others begin to speak. Slowly, cautiously, like people testing the edge of a hot loaf. They pass a resolution, a formal investigation, more inspectors, more guards, a temporary freezing of Lucilius's accounts, a public announcement, and then, the moment of irony, they ask you to help draft the proclamation. You, man who used to get paid in yesterday's bread and pocket-sized olives. You leave the Curia not feeling powerful, but feeling heard, rare, uncomfortable, almost dangerous. You pass a crowd, gathered by the temple steps. A man reads aloud from a scroll. You hear your own words echo off the stone. You don't stop to listen. You already know what they say. Instead, you head back to the market. The bakeries are alive today. Vendors are shouting prices that make no economic sense. A woman is selling tiny loaves shaped like the emperor's head. Children are throwing breadcrumbs. at each other like confetti. You even see a street performer juggling flatbreads. You stop by Terentius's shop. He holds up a dark rye loaf. "No marble," he grunts. You hold up 2 fingers. He nods and wraps them in cloth. "Next," ruses. "Did you change the world?" she asks, handing you a lemon thyme roll. "Just cleaned the floor a little," you reply. She smiles. That's how revolutions start. You eat the roll while sitting on the same low wall as yesterday. Rome moves around you, not faster, just differently. And here's something odd. A traveler approaches out of place in a patched foreign tunic. "Are you the inspector?" he asks. You nod. He smiles. "I heard about the sand loaves. Thought you were just a myth." You shake your head, only halfway. Then you hand him the last bit of bread from your pouch. "It's spelt," you say. "Dense, honest, won't lie to your teeth." He laughs and walks off. You lean back and close your eyes for just a moment. Let the sun carry the weight for a while. Twilight in Rome. It doesn't sneak in. It strolls. Like a senator's second wife. Like a baker after market day. The sky deepens into copper, then plum, then velvet ink. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because dusk deserves the courtesy of a stroll. Your job's not done, of course. Bread doesn't wait. Neither do bribes, but tonight is different. You've been asked to attend a convivium, a formal dinner hosted by none other than Senator Valeria. A thank you of sorts, a gesture, an opportunity, possibly a trap. You arrive at her villa just as the sky begins to glitter. Inside, all is warmth. Flickering lamps, gentle lyre music, the scent of roasted fennel and garlic. You're offered wine. You accept. You're shown to a couch. You recline. Valeria enters, not grandly, just efficiently. "Inspector," she says. "Welcome." She sits beside you, not above. That says something. "You've given Rome a little honesty this week," she says. It's almost suspicious. You raise your cup. "I'll try not to make it a habit." She laughs. "Please don't. The food is simple. Lentils, flatbread, some grilled fish, a honey cake that tries very hard not to crumble. And, of course, bread. You taste it carefully. It's perfect." Valeria watches you chew. Imported flour. Alexandria. Legitimate, I promise. You nod. "Tastes clean." She leans forward. "The Senate wants to hire you. Not full-time, just ... often." You blink. "As a baker? As a watchman? You consider it." You swirl your wine. Then you answer, "I'll keep watching. As long as the ovens keep burning." She smiles. "We'll try not to disappoint them." The dinner winds down. Leave full, not just with food, but something rarer in Rome, a sense of quiet usefulness. Outside, the stars are out. Crisp, distant, ancient. You walk home by side streets, past sleeping dogs and shuttered taverns. You pause near the bakery. Shrine again. Someone's left a garland. You smile. You place a fresh crust beside it, because rituals matter. Even if no one sees. The night grows thicker, deeper. You wake just before dawn. Not because you must, but because you can. There's no inspection scroll rolled under your door, no steward pounding on the lintel, no urgent summons to chase bricks dressed as grain. Just silence. the soft humming kind. You sit for a while with your thoughts, which arrive slowly and politely, like old friends who know not to nod too loudly. You drink a cup of watered wine, stale but familiar. Then, with no great ceremony, you dress and walk out into the city that still sleeps. Rome before sunrise is a rarer Rome. The streets are washed in blue shadows. The air is clean, cool, touched with oven smoke and the breath of fountains. You can almost hear the city inhale. The bakeries are the first to stir. You hear the scrape of paddle against oven wall, the whisper of flour sifted in the dark, the quiet oaths of apprentices who've already burned their fingers. The loaves aren't ready yet, but their ghosts already rise in the air. You pass Terentius's shop. A small candle flickers in the window. He's working by lamplight, sleeves rolled, focused like a sculptor. You don't stop him. Bruce's stall is still shuttered, but there's chalk on the ground outside, a quote from Seneca about patience, or maybe indigestion. It's hard to tell this early. You keep walking, through alleys and arches, overworn. Stones and under fluttering laundry. Rome's undergarments, you think, airing themselves in the breeze. You reach the river just as the sky turns from ink to silver. Boats bob softly. A fish leaps. Somewhere nearby, someone is already arguing about olives. You sit on the low wall again, the same one from the days before, and there, wrapped in cloth, is a small loaf. No note, no name, just a loaf. You pick it up, smell it. It's still warm. Sip pea and honey, with a hint of citrus. You break it. Inside, baked into the dough, is a tiny shape, a dove. Formed of crust and care. You eat half, leave half for someone else. That's the rule, unspoken but eternal. As the sun finally crests the rooftops, Rome begins its daily climb from firewood to empire again. You hear shutters opening, coins clinking, dogs barking at their own shadows. You rise. You have nothing scheduled today, but you'll walk, you'll watch, because the city doesn't just need emperors and poets. It needs people who notice when the bread is honest. And when it isn't. The city softens now. Its edges blur in the golden hush of morning, and everything sharp becomes round statues, stones, worries. Even the air, once full of orders and oaths, carries only birdsong and the clatter of loaves being stacked for sale. The ovens burn low. The flames speak more quietly. The streets echo with sandals, not shouts. And you, dear listener, are still. Here, you've walked the alleyways of ancient Rome, watched steam rise from honest loaves, felt the weight of flour in your palm and the weight of truth on your shoulders. You've seen bakers dream and deceive, inspectors sigh, and senators sip wine while wondering whether bread is politics or poetry. You've tasted spelt injustice, salt and silence. Now, the day's done. The loaves have cooled. The last pigeons flutter down to feast on the morning's crumbs. And in the slow, stretching breath of twilight's twin dawn, you feel the city do what it rarely admits to doing. Rest. So, let your breath ease. Let the rhythm of ancient ovens lull you. Let the memory of warm bread, honest hands, and candlelit stories wrap around your thoughts like soft cloth. Because for now, there are no scrolls to sign. No bricks to weigh. No crusts to condemn. Just the quiet of a Payadova. Rome that just for a moment has nothing more to demand of you. Sleep well. Inspector, you've earned it. If you enjoyed this sleepy journey through the streets of ancient Rome, we gently invite you to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from and what time it is for you. Rest easy. And until the next tale, good night.